Hey guys, and welcome to this week's episode of We Are Called. Today will be the second video in our saint series, and today we'll be discussing a saint that is very relevant to our current times of social injustice and outcry, Saint Peter Claver. Today is also October the 7th, which is the Feast of the Holy Rosary. So don't forget to spend some time in prayer today, saying at least a decade of the Rosary, and thanksgiving to Our Lady for the beautiful prayer that she's gifted the world. Without further ado, let's get into learning more about St. Peter Claver. Peter Claver was 25 years old when he entered a Jesuit college in his homeland of Spain. His friend Alphonsus Rodriguez, who worked at the college, had a vision of Peter fulfilling God's mission for him outside of Spain. Being that Alphonsus was a holy man, Peter listened to him and left his homeland in search of his mission. In 1610, Peter landed in Cartagena, modern-day Colombia. It is here in Cartagena that he completed his priestly training and was ordained in 1616. Peter went straight to work almost immediately, actively living the Gospels. The slave trade was booming at this time in the Americas. Cartagena, because of its location in the Caribbean, was a rich port city that thrived on the slave trade. 10,000 slaves came into the port each year from West Africa. 2/3 of the slaves on board having died due to the horrid conditions on the ship. Those who survived were badly mistreated and disease-ridden, having spent months aboard the ship in crowded and unclean conditions. It was with these suffering and abused souls that Peter put his faith into practice. In 1622, Peter discovered there were some Africans who spoke Spanish and also knew one or more of the African languages. They became his interpreters. Each month, as a new ship arrived with new slaves, Peter would go to them bearing necessities, such as medicines, food, and water. He would see to their wounds and make sure they had what little provisions he could offer. Peter began teaching these men and women about the Catholic Church as he attended to them. By 1651, he had baptized more than 300,000 slaves. With the help of his interpreters, he was able to teach them about the catechism as well as basic prayers. The act of contrition being among them, as too often those newly baptized were close to death. Peter spent 40 years as a missionary to the slaves in Cartagena, until ultimately succumbing to the plague. He died September 7, 1654. Peter had spent the better part of his life championing dignity and respect for life for the marginalized of society. He was a voice for the voiceless, and he relentlessly challenged the morality of the governing masses concerning the slave trade. Pope Leo XIII canonized Peter Claver in 1888 and declared him the worldwide patron of missionary work among black slaves. St. Peter Claver is the patron saint of African Americans, African missions, Colombia, and interracial justice. In a time where racial injustice is still on display and those without a voice are still needing to be heard, St. Peter Claver stands to encourage us to really question ourselves. Are we doing what we can to help the marginalized of our own society? Are we able to come out of our comfort zone in the support of another? Are we living up to our potential? May St. Peter Claver help us and our world as we continue to wrestle with social injustice and the mistreatment and abuse of men, women, and children. May he inspire us by the example of his life and faith to be living representations of the Gospels to those most in need. St. Peter Claver, pray for us. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed learning about St. Peter Claver, please give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to comment below if there's any additional facts that I missed, something that I'd love to learn additionally about the saint. And don't forget to hit the bell so that you get notifications, because we do upload a video every single week. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and until next time, blessings to you and yours.